Hey, welcome back to another episode of Mike Drop, where I, Mike Turner, our Director of Development and Integration at Gap Relief, have the pleasure of interviewing awesome service providers and partners in the Gap Relief network. I'm very excited about our guest today, Brittany Turner, a 3 to 4 year veteran therapist at this point, and intensive lead at Gap Relief. Brittany, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
Yeah. You know, it's not every day that I get to chat with someone as attractive as you.
Oh,
Interactive.
interactive is me.
Interactive as you interact with a lot of people
Always
as a
interacting.
therapist. Is that right?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. Well, let's just get straight into the questions. Our first question is actually from the producers. They were asking me to help settle a bet. They seem to think you're single or married.
Yep.
Single. Married. That's fine. I bet he's a great guy.
He's all right.
You going to tell us a little bit about him? Or?
Nope. Not here to talk about him.
Oh, yeah, it was some trouble in paradise. It's hard to find a good partner these days, somebody who can ask great questions, a good listener,
Yeah.
reliable.
It's a good thing that I do a lot of marital therapy.
Yeah,
I'll just say that.
well, whoever he is, he's a lucky guy, and I bet I could take him. Anyway, Chuck, I told you. Let's take it from the top. This is ridiculous. Our guest today is Brittany Turner, the intensive lead at Gap Relief. We're excited to have her on the program to give us a little bit of information about some of the stigmas and maybe some of the misconceptions around counseling in general, but also intensive counseling. So as the intensive lead at Gap Relief, she's got a lot of great information. Brittany, thank you for being on the show.
You're welcome.
Right out the gate, you're the intensive lead at Gap Relief. Is that because you're the most intensive counselor? Do you like yell a lot? You got to protect your title, kind of a.
Yeah, you can probably tell from my voice and presence that I'm pretty intense.
Yeah.
People are often pretty intimidated by me.
Yeah, I can see
Yeah,
why they
that's
gave
why
you
I
the
got the
position.
role.
That makes a lot of sense. We all know that counseling is for people who have somewhat lost the plot. Real wackadoodles go to counseling, right? Can you imagine what would it be like to have just a normal person as a client?
Nope. Normal is a myth.
Yeah, that's what
I
my
don't believe it
therapist
anymore.
says as well. My therapist says the same thing. In all seriousness, let's talk about where does the stigma around counseling and therapy come from? You know, I think that maybe 10 years ago, even the idea that you'd go to therapy at all was like, woohoo. Has that come down? Do we feel like the general stigma around counseling is ebbing a bit?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think over the last decade, the stigma and what you would traditionally think of when you think about the stigma around counseling isn't as true. Not that it doesn't exist, but that's not really what I deal with or am exposed to. It's not really a typical barrier in the same way anymore, which is great.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of how our society has pushed pro mental health, just like you would have, a primary care physician. It makes sense that you would have someone walking with you.
Absolutely. People are ready to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
But I have heard, as I talk with you all in the intensive program, is that there does even still seem to be some lingering stigma around anything kind of beyond the prototypical 1 hour a week. At Gap Relief, you, as our intensive lead, you head up our program where people are coming in for like 15 to 25 hours of different types of therapies, all kind of jammed together in a single week. Really powerful, really meaningful. But do you still see some stigma in that space?
I do. And I think actually before it even becomes a stigma, there's just a lack of awareness of what that even is. It's a newer thing, I think. And so as regular counseling has been normalized, this is a space that hasn't been as normalized. And so that's the first thing, is just to kind of help people become aware of it. And then when the stigma comes in or even the question comes in, it's more of like, do I qualify for that? Do I have to have, something crazy going on in my life to qualify for that? Or do I have to be a crazy person to qualify for that? So those are where we still see the stigma coming in with the intensives.
That makes total sense. So I feel like I heard, though, there's a stigma around wow, do I need to be like having a really big problem to go do a full week of therapy? But also like an underlying question of like, at what point should I think about doing that? At what point should I think about going through like an official program like this versus maybe I have a great relationship with my weekly therapist and I think that that's helping. I know that that's helping, but I'm curious about this. What could you hand to somebody who's looking at an intensive and asking themselves like, at what point should I consider pulling the trigger on something like that?
It's a great question. There's all kinds of reasons that you might consider pulling the trigger on that. One of them might just be in your assessment with your weekly counselor. Is this helping? Or is my situation or my pain or my trauma from childhood so big and impacting me so much in this current here and now season that I should consider something more? Other reasons, I mean, there's all kinds of situations that might lead someone to an intensive, major transitions, relationships in crisis, the awareness all of a sudden that I did have this crazy developmentally traumatic impact from my childhood, and suddenly it's making it hard for me to function in my day-to-day life. I need more help. Yeah.
I love that. So I'm hearing you say, I'm sitting in my weekly therapy sessions and, maybe I've been doing that for 6 months, but all of a sudden we kind of find something that I didn't realize was there. Or maybe it's a level of insight that I'm starting to see a lot of stuff really differently. And that is building up all of a sudden and making like, man, I feel like I need to take some time to slow down and really dig into this. So, if somebody's sitting here listening and thinking, okay, you had me at hello, I'm tracking, this kind of sounds like me. Give us a 15-20 second rundown of like, what is our intensive program? What would be the thing we'd like to hand that person?
Okay. 15 to 20 seconds is hard.
Yeah, you got to keep it tight.
But it's a week-long time to slow down around that big thing that's feeling stuck. And so our intensive program is designed to get out of our brains and figuring out how to outthink our problems and really let this environment create a healing experience for you where you can move through that pain rather than keep it stuck in your system.
Okay, I love that. And what services would be included typically?
Oh, yes. So counseling, and that's all trauma-informed, neurofeedback, Enneagram, embodiment specialists that work on breath work, brain spotting, yoga type stuff, and then also the fun parts where you get to, as you've learned about all these things that you're working through, get to rage it out and exercise it out.
Some rage room. All right, sign me up. That sounds great. Well, thank you, Brittany. You've spent some time with us. And final question before we wrap is, as you think about somebody who's coming through the program and maybe they had a great experience in the program, what would be your hope that they could say is different for them on the far side of the program? If they're like any other natural human, they're maybe trying to make some value decisions around that's a lot of time investment and it's a lot of money investment. What should I be hoping for, and what does it sound like on the other side?
It's a great question. Hope for lots of things, but at my core, I just really hope that people are more clear and in touch with who they are outside of all their pain and stress and trauma, and that they can walk more clearly from that point and let that impact their next season of their life, whether that be the work environment, the hard family environment, just whatever. Just more in sync and in touch with who they are meant to be, because that is beautiful in its core.
I love that. That's awesome. Thank you for taking the time on the show today. Thanks
You're
for
welcome.
everything you share, and thanks for your awesome work and service at Gap Relief.
You're welcome. Thank you.
If you have questions about our intensive program, you want to know more, we have our information on the website, gaprelief.com. You can find us on social media. If you want to continue the conversation with our brilliant intensive lead here, feel free to reach out and we'll get you in touch. Thanks for tuning in.